Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are going to go through a demo of the new Propel software. This is a software Hub has been collaborating with Life Design Analysis to build this for Hub advisors, which you have access to through our partnership with Hub as the MGA. The idea is to help your practice be more efficient and effective. And there's a few different ways that the software can help you with that. I've invited Jonathan or John to join us, walk through a demo, and then I'll be here to ask some questions to understand how it might help you with your practice and whether or not you should be incorporating this software into your business and what you'd expect that outcome to be. So with that, I'll turn it over to John and I'll let you go through the presentation.
Awesome. And thanks, Corey, for hosting me, and then everybody for your attendance today. I just started sharing my screen, so hopefully everybody can see that. Figured before going into the how-to of Propel, I speak more to what our value is in the insurance industry, why we've partnered with Hub, and we can go over some like case study examples of how Propel specifically works. Now, I've included a QR code on this webinar today. If you are interested in enrolling in Propel, if you scan that code, it'll go directly to the Hub website and the registration form, which gets you set up. Alternatively, you could also reach out to Jordan Rodriguez from the Hub team, and he can help get you set up. I will bring this in afterwards once we review the program further. So Propel has a few different pillars as far as how it can help your business, but one of the first ways is with presenting insurance recommendations to your clients. Most advisors I meet with when they're meeting with their clients to give a life insurance recommendation is they are using either a carrier illustration or some form of a custom document. Typically, it's a spreadsheet. Now, what we've learned in our studies is that most people, and just in general, they learn better through visuals as compared to with numbers and text. So they cater better to those visuals because you can process them faster. And the majority of our clients that we're meeting with as well, they don't know a lot about insurance. 8 in 10 consumers are confused about their options before meeting with an advisor. So part of your role is to educate clients on a recommendation or based on their insurance need. But the way that we typically show recommendations in the industry does not suit the client's learning preferences. Now, if we take the visual example and step outside of insurance for just a second, I always like to use this analogy. If you're driving down the road and you have the option of viewing one of these two signs, either the one on the left or the one on the right, which one do you feel like conveys the message better and more effectively? I think all of us here can agree that it's the image on the right because clearly we can see what the visual is telling us as opposed to reading the equivalent text. So this again kind of speaks to the one statistic that visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than numbers and text. So that's one of our main purposes with Propel is to support you with your insurance recommendations to cater them into a client-friendly format for any type of recommendation, whether it's a simple term quote or if you're working on an elaborate corporate concept strategy, such as insurance as an asset class or an IFA. These types of cases we can create in a custom report, white labeled to you for your client that emphasizes a lot of these visuals. And these are very easy to design. It's all done inside of the Propel system. We have quoting built in through our LifeGuide integration. We can work with data for more elaborate plans from the carrier's illustration software. And you can compile the pages and the output based on whatever works for the client in a matter of minutes. Most of these take about 5 minutes to design. And because you're repeating your steps from case to case or report to report, usually after two or three of them, we start to see that learning curve disappear for anybody that's new to the system. And as I mentioned earlier on, these reports are white labeled, meaning your logo, your colors, your name, even your compliance documents can be included in these presentations. So the output looks like it's coming from you, not Hub, not a third-party software, not an insurance company. So let's go into one of these examples. I have a few different example cases that I've loaded here. Now, anywhere where you see the Propel logo and my name and the colors, envision it has your look and feel, the advanced strategy look and feel. So as I scroll through this, you'll also notice that there are some compliance documents that are loaded into here. These can be toggled on and off. The default is that they will appear. We have documents that are catered to all client interactions, such as disclaimers and a mission statement for client expectation. We also have compliance documents built in that you can modify for each client. So an example of that is this reason why letter template that I've added in. I can fill in the blanks based on the client's need and the recommendation I'm making to customize it for each client. We can add in your own custom reason why. It doesn't have to be the template that we provide in Propel. And we also offer a needs analysis tool for either a personal or a business insurance need. So, really breaking down that insurance need further into these different pieces of the pie chart, but elaborating to the client how this need can change as they get older. And you'll notice here as I'm using these visuals, they're interactive, so I could toggle them on and off to show my client not just their need today, but their need in the future. So if you're recommending a permanent form of insurance, this could be a good way to plant the seeds of that need or the reasoning behind that recommendation. Now, we can show any carrier, any product type, any amount of products, or any death benefit with those products. It's really up to you. I've modified this to remove the carrier name for demonstration's sake, and I've added in a term 10, a level cost minimum funded universal life policy, and a participating 20 pay par whole life. So these plans, again, I removed the carrier names. The top two, I actually searched inside of Propel. So I used our quoting to then find these plans and select the two that I'd like to use in the report, whereas the whole life I brought from an outside source, and that would be a carrier's illustration software. And what we can do with the data once we load it in is translate that into these forms of graphics. So here we're looking at the payment schedule and the difference between each of these plans to highlight that, yeah, term is cheaper today, but eventually as time goes on, it will become more expensive up until the point where it's non-renewable. Even from a cumulative cost, highlighting how, yeah, again, term is cheaper today, but here's the crossover point of when the term is now more expensive than the permanent. So if my client had an insurance need at and around life expectancy, we can clearly see that the value in here is with the blue and the green line for the permanent plans compared to the yellow line for the term plan. So it helps us show the value of insurance over time as opposed to what are they paying today? So that's one of the values, and that's probably why this is the most popular page inside of Propel. But if we're getting into cash value analysis for par plans or overfunded UL, we can highlight the current dividends, reduced dividend, guaranteed values, all with a click of a button just by hovering our cursor over this. And same thing with the coverage amount. So I really like it for a page like this or a plan like this where I have a rider designed in it and showing the rider dropping off at a particular period of time. And to make that emphasis even easier, you can add in your own text notes to these charts. So all I did is I clicked on the line at the point in time I needed to highlight something like the rider ending. This pop-up window appears, I type in my text, click save, and the end result is what I see here. Now, we also offer pages in a number or a table format for those that are more analytical or even just to summarize the data that we've presented here in the visuals. So again, we're looking at the sum of premiums or cumulative cost in increments of 5 years, just so the pages stay the same format and size, but we can always expand them to show the years in between. And then I've included the cash value and the coverage amount for this as well. So we have a summary of those values. So what we've looked at inside of here, this is the presentation mode inside of Propel. So when you log into your account, and we'll go into that in just a little bit, this is the output that you can generate when you're meeting with your clients face to face, virtually as we are today. And with these reports, you can always share them to a client either via a document. So we use a PDF format if you want to download it and then send it to a client. But there's a better way of sharing it to the client through a web link. So these web links are interactive. So if a client clicks on the web link that you send to them via email, they would then see this report on their own device in their internet browser, and you would receive an alert telling you when they open it, how long they look at it for, how long they look at each page, and how much interaction is done. Plus, the client sees the full report as opposed to a static version, which is the PDF. So PDFs we generally recommend for printing or for saving a backup locally to your own device. So that's one example of a report. Again, really it's up to you as far as how you can format these. Another example here that I've added in for those of us that are in the corporate market is showing insurance as an asset class. So I'll scroll past some of the pages we've seen previously. So what I've done here is I've loaded in a par whole life plan, a 20 pay, $50,000 annual premium for 20 years. So $1 million cumulative at the end of that 20 years. And what I'm doing is I'm comparing this to an alternate investment. So to make it a similar risk profile to the insurance, I've made this as a fixed income investment. So 100% of it's in that interest investment mix to make it that way. I've put an aggressive growth rate of 5.25% on that. Uh, but what I can do is I can show the client and educate them the difference between taking those dollars and investing them into a non-registered asset versus putting them into a life insurance policy and the taxation savings they'll see by doing so. And we can highlight the values or highlight what this looks like for the client at life expectancy or right around that estate time period. So we can establish that target age. And I've already created this beforehand, and I've made this at age 85. So what this is showing me here is that on the left-hand side, here is the total amount that investment equals as a gross number at age 85. So taking that 50K, putting it into that investment class for 20 years and what it grows to. So it's 6.4 million. However, a lot of it is lost due to tax. So we see here that 4.6 of that 6.4 million is lost to tax. So we get 1.8 net to the estate at age 85. Now we can compare that versus the insurance, where on the insurance side, the death benefit would have grown to just over $5 million. And here we could see all that goes back to the estate. So really what we're comparing here is the 5 million to the 1.8. Obviously the 5 million is better, so it makes it quite easy to sell the advantage of the insurance. Now, these values are if the insurance policy performs to its current dividend. If you are conservative and would rather show it at a reduced dividend, such as 1% or minus 1% of its current dividend, we can do that as well. And here again, you can still see that significant advantage. Now, we have other ways we can show the value of insurance as an asset class, such as the rate of return of the insurance versus the potential rate of return required for an alternate investment. So this is telling me for the interest investment mix, so a fixed income investment, in order to equal the insurance, I need a return of 10.5% year to year from year one to year 45 in this case, because that's when age 85 is. So again, it's really showing how it's difficult to do that in this investment class. But even if I were to mix it into a more risky portfolio, the rate of return is always higher on the investment side because there is that taxation compared to the insurance. Of course, we can break down the calculations year to year, what the net estate benefit is versus the insurance and the advantage. A lot of advisors like this next page because it's a simple visual to highlight year to year the difference between investing that money in a non-registered investment versus purchasing the insurance policy. So that's what this green line represents versus the blue line, which is the net estate of the insurance. But we could toggle in that cash value as we did as a default. And then we have our summary page as well. So again, just really what I wanted to do is show the diversity within these insurance presentations. And again, some of these are more heavy as far as the pages go. We have 13 pages for both of those presentations. We could strip it down to 1 or 2 pages. It really is up to you, but the visuals are quite impactful, and the way that we can convey the recommendation to the clients has proven to be quite successful. And we've seen a lot of good feedback from advisors. 86% of the subscribers we've seen to Life Design Analysis, which is the origins of Propel, saw an increase in FYC year to year. So if you're using these presentations, you're very well likely to see the same thing. So that's part one. Now, part two of Propel is on the flip side. What happens when you sell a policy? Now, when I ask this to most advisors, because let's face it, the presentation side of things, that is a small piece of the pie when it comes to your client relationship. A lot of it comes after the fact, once the policy is issued and servicing that client afterwards. When I ask advisors, though, how they do this typically before using Propel, they fall under one of these three buckets: creating a custom document, using a CRM, or relying on the carriers. So, speaking about a custom document, it's definitely a good thing to do if that's something you're doing. However, there are some inefficiencies that come into play, such as, well, creating it, formatting it to all the carrier differences and the considerations of, well, how do we track employees? How do we track members of a family? And then, of course, because it's a document, there's no alerts that are provided with it, and it requires a lot of updating and upkeep to ensure that document is still up to date. So those that do it are definitely, it's a good thing, but it's not the best option because there are some gaps clearly. Then there's CRMs. CRMs are probably the biggest software topic outside of AI in the industry. They're great tools and they work for so many different business models, but that is a slight downside of it because they're not designed for insurance out of the box. It's something that you have to do and invest the time and the resources into that. So, again, that takes a lot of time and attention. And usually there's manual uploading of documents that is necessary, and the carriers are all different in the format of how they do it. So there is a lot of administration work that's required to get a CRM fully up and running. But once you do, they are great tools. Then there's the out of the box and most popular option, which is relying on the carriers. The majority of advisors I meet with, this is where they fall under because there's nothing you need to do to set this up. It's just provided to you by working with the carrier. Now, the carriers typically alert you 60 to 90 days before renewal comes up. I think we all know with underwriting that is a aggressive timeline to then meet with the client and then convert them into a new policy and really go through that process properly. Plus, if you want to gather your policy information, you don't have a one-stop shop system to do that. It's something you have to do with each specific carrier. And if you're contracted with five or more carriers, that means you're logging into five or more systems to consolidate that information. And then it comes down to, well, how do you consolidate it with those other options? So that's one thing we try to eliminate with Propel because with those other systems, they all have gaps. What we do with Propel is we have a data feed that we've established with Hub and the insurance carriers which sends your in-force block of business into the system automatically so you could see your clients and your policyholders in one convenient location. Because Propel is designed with insurance in mind and for insurance data, we can alert you of insurance opportunities automatically. We have filters that are built out of the box to help you find insurance opportunities. And this insurance data can be paired with the presentations that we showed earlier on. So if I wanted to compare a client's existing T10 versus a new recommendation, I can add it into that same presentation to run that comparison using a lot of the data that we already get from the insurance carriers. There's policy summaries, there's client profiles that offer CRM-like capabilities, which we'll break down in just a second. But all this data is fed into Propel automatically. There's no importing, no manual entry required. It's all set up through the data feed that we have established. Now, this is a list that I need to update because we've added in BMO and a few other carriers. We do get feeds on a weekly and on a monthly basis. Now, one thing to note is we may get information from a carrier like Beneva on a weekly basis, but sometimes the carriers take more than a week to update their own back office once a policy is issued to then have it appear in a data feed. So although we get it weekly and monthly, sometimes it takes the carrier a little bit more time to process that and then provide that policy information within a feed, but it's usually no longer than 90 days we'd see the policy issued until you see it inside of Propel, which is leaving you more time than advance or definitely enough time to then work with the client and service them when you need to. So we haven't run into any issues there, but just wanted to provide some clarity. The data updates weekly and monthly, but sometimes the policies aren't sent a week after they are issued. So please keep that in mind. So let's talk about the policy management. I wanted to give some examples of how that works inside of Propel. So here's what the look and feel is of the client management system inside of Propel. When you scroll down here, you can see that there's some personal information options on the left-hand side, some policy information options on the right-hand side. But this is a list of all of my clients and their policy details inside of one screen. If I wanted to search for somebody or find something like a carrier, a policy number, all we do is we type in the text bar that's below the header. So as an example, if I want to find my demo client Sharon Sample, I type in her name and there she is, appearing along or just below where that information is stored. So I'll reset the filters, but so we can find someone or something. Every client has their own view option, which can take us to their client profile. But inside of Propel's client system, we have these case opportunity filters. And these opportunity filters allow you to find opportunities within your block of business with a click of a button. As an example, if I click term 10 conversion, what it will do is it will use today's date 10 years ago, and it will search for policies issued after that date in an earliest to latest order based on the issue date. And you'll notice here that it doesn't matter who the carrier is, they all come up within this list. And then once I see them here, I can then choose to work with them in an insurance case. I can contact them. It really is up to you. But this is kind of your out of the box report that you get from Propel for a Term 10 renewal. We also provide them for Term 10 exchanges, swaps, different carriers have different terminologies. We use today's date 5 years ago for that. Now, there are some carriers like the Canada Lifes, the Empire Lifes of the world that do it at the 7th year anniversary. If we wanted to change that filter to reflect that date, we can easily do it as I am right here. So there are ways to modify it, but the standard is 5 years since that still is the standard or the primary default we see with most carriers. And then finally, there's a Term 20 conversion filter that uses T20s issued after today's date 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, excuse me, in that same earliest to latest order. And then finally, we have our overdue filters. This will then look for T10s and T20s, starting with the issue date of today's date 10 years ago, and then before that. So it's kind of the flip of those other two that we've seen. So there's filters that allow you to find opportunities quite easily out of the box. There are also notifications inside of Propel. So these alerts for something like a T10 renewal start at the 7th year anniversary, and then the 15th year anniversary for a T20 renewal. And then every year after on that policy issue date anniversary, all the way up until 90 days or 3 months prior to it, you will receive a notification from Propel for that opportunity. Those notifications are visible in here. They are sent to you via email the next day if you haven't logged into Propel. But inside of the notification section, you can filter through the different notification types to search for specific alerts, such as a Term 10 renewal opportunity, which is what I'm looking for right here. So again, you don't have to be reactive with the filters, or excuse me, you don't have to be proactive with the filters. You can be reactive with the notifications in case something slips through the cracks or you want that extra safety net if you're maybe busy on the planning side of the business and you need something to keep you up to speed on the insurance side. A lot of advisors find themselves under that category and they're using Propel for that reason. Now, let's go into a client's profile and see what we can do with that information and how it's sorted. So again, I'll bring up my Sharon sample client. I'll select view to go to their client profile. This will take me to the view of where I can see more information for Sharon or any of our clients. So we have their client information on the top right of the page. In the center portion here, we have our notes that we've created for the client. So again, kind of a pseudo CRM feature where we can store notes inside of here. The insurance cases or presentations, those are stored on the right or on the left-hand side. So those are the reports that we've designed for that client. And then on the right-hand side, we can see the policy details. So actually, I'll hide this one once I come back to this. So all the policies listed here, they are coming from the data feeds and they're all stored under one location as they should be. So because Sharon has a policy through 3 different providers doesn't mean we have 3 different profiles for Sharon. We just have it in the one as it should be. There is document storage, so any files that you have saved locally, you can also save to Propel as an online backup. And you could also run market surveys from their profile. So if you wanted to just do a quick survey for this client for a specific product like a T10, a T20, a T100, it's up to you. Anything that you can really search for in a market survey program, you can run it from here and receive a report of those options. Or you can start an insurance case, run a report of that, and then choose those options to appear in the report. So there's a few different ways we can work with that. Now, at the very top of the page, there's this option here called Generate Policy Summary. Once selected, what this will do is it will show in a one-pager type of report, but of course we have a cover that's branded to you, the policies that are listed inside of their client profile. So here you can see the policies that were in there are now included. I did hide one of those examples because I added that in from another presentation, just forgot to delete it with my demo one. But this can be used as a summary to share to our clients either on an annual basis, such as like on their birthday, or once we have an opportunity to then remind them of what they have for their insurance options. We can add in a custom note to this report if we wish. And if you want to share this to the client, you have those same options as the other presentations that you can create. So the web link or the PDF. But primarily what Propel and life design analysis for those outside of Hub is used for is to then work with this information and use Propel for that reason. So if an opportunity comes up for renewal, taking the data we have in the system, showing that to the client and using it alongside new quotes and new recommendations. So it's not just a database or a back office. It could be used as a like pseudo front office application with a client where you can then use that data in your meetings and in your client discussions. So let's go through how that works with kind of from start to finish. But I'm just clicking on the Propel logo here. This takes me to the home page inside of Propel. And how Propel works from a login perspective, it's connected through your HubLink account. So if you have an active Propel subscription, when you go into HubLink in the My Office section, you'll see an icon for Propel. And when selected, it will take you to this page and log you in. So the username and password essentially is your HubLink one, but you log in through your HubLink access. Once you're on the main screen, the main options that you would utilize are the first three: add new case, manage cases, and manage clients. So add new cases where you go to design any of these insurance presentations like we saw at the beginning of our call today. Manage cases, that's where I can see all the reports I've created in the past, not just those segmented by client. So think of that as the file folder of what you design within Propel. And then manage clients. This is what we were just looking at, the client management page where we could search for clients, for opportunities, for policies, and view their client profiles. So to get started with one of these reports, I'd simply go to the add new case option. That's the best way to do it. And from here, I can either create a brand new prospect from scratch. So note, this isn't just for existing clients. This could be for new clients or new prospects. If we are working with a new client, all we need to do is create them through that new client button. Either of them bring up this pop-up window of the client form where we're asked to put in their name. We recommend their date of birth so we can round up to their age nearest, gender, smoker status, and then at the bottom, we can enter in the country and province. So this is primarily used if we are working with a insurance strategy involving taxation, so we could have the proper provincial tax rate, either on a personal or corporate basis loaded in. So once you've done that, click save, and then the client's first and last name will appear in this text bar. But this text bar can also be used to search for a client inside of our database. So let's search for our Sharon sample client. I'm simply typing in the characters of her first name. The search results appear below. So there's Sharon Sample. I'll click on her name. When I see Sharon Sample's name there or a client that we're searching, select the continue button below, and that will take me to the design case page. This is where we put together the insurance presentations for any of our prospects or clients. Now, one thing to note is when we're starting a case, we start by adding in the primary client. If we are working on a joint case or a multi-life case, just on the right-hand side where we see our client's details, there's the Add Joint Client button below that. If I select it, it will give me the same options as the past page where I can create a client or search for a client. So this again works for joint or multi-life, but you need to add in the second client after the primary one from this page. Now, once we're here, this top center area where it says add plans to compare, and we see these blue colored buttons for different product types, this is where we can add in different plans, either through the market survey integration or the carrier illustration software integration, and then add it into the Propel presentations. Now, before I get into that, I wanted to highlight this handy icon here, this handy button, plus enforce policy. This appears exclusively for clients who have policies in their profile. So we already saw that Sharon has a couple policies in their profile. If I select the plus enforce policy option, it will show all the policy numbers that we had inside of her profile. By selecting one of those policy numbers, this is me telling Propel I would like to take that information from their profile and move it into or copy it into this insurance presentation. So what I need to do is select the proper term type because it knows it's a term product in this case. So I'll choose 10-year term, select save. So it's copying those details from the client profile, adding it into the design case page. And where I see it or how I know I've done this successfully is at the top or right above these blue colored buttons. I see that term 10 listed there, the issue date of the policy, and now I can proceed to editing this a little bit further before I move on. Now, all the editing that occurs within this blue button, this navy blue one on the right-hand side. So you'll notice it says edit plan, looks like a little white pencil. When selected, it brings up this pop-up window. which allows me to change the name. So I'll call this existing term 10. I can add a description. And then I could also add to the premium details. One key thing to note is the initial premium comes from the carrier. Some are unfortunately a bit inconsistent with how they provide the first renewal, but the majority do not provide the renewals beyond the initial premium. So in here, this is where we can enter in those details. So once you're alerted of the opportunity, that's when you can gather the information as opposed to doing it kind of all at once when you get started. And you can add it into here so you can show the client, here's what you're currently spending versus here's the increased cost that will occur with a plan like this over time. Everything else that you see here, that comes with the carriers through the data feed that we've established. So you don't have to duplicate the client entry. We don't have to duplicate the data or the primary data points for their policy. It's just the renewals we would need to add in as a final step. Once you're done, click save. The results of loading in that premium and then the name change or description addition, they would be visible on this design case page. So once we've added in that plan, we can adding in new recommendations. And that's where these main blue icons come into play. If I'm looking at something such as term insurance, by selecting that term button, this will allow me to survey the insurance market with our rate integration. So if we use Life Guide, no, you don't need Life Guide in order to use this integration inside of Propel. It is included with the Propel subscription. So once you're enabling a market survey, you can type in the details of the plan you wish to search for. Primarily, you can use insurance benefit, although there is an option to search by premium. Most of them are needs-based though, so I would suggest doing it by the insurance benefit amount. The client info already comes in, so we don't need to enter that again. We can then choose the term length. Here you can see a variety of options. We also have an OptiTerm section, which is for any T10s that have a unique term length, such as like a T17 as a random example. We have risk, we have payment schedule, which you can modify. We also have a company filter where you can establish your own custom list of carriers, which we call my preferred companies. So instead of searching every single carrier or one at a time, you could search the list of carriers that you wish to see. When you select search, that will show the results. So here they are. They're listed in a least to most expensive order. And the nice thing about this is because we are a web-based system, this is updated automatically in the background, and it's usually updated on a daily basis. One thing I can tell you right away is Empire, they've recently had a rate change, and that is reflected in the system automatically. Some carriers, they do offer little key notes. So Empire Life is mentioning the lower rates that are now available with their T10 and their T20. So if they do provide a message, you'll see that there. But this data is really meant to be added into a presentation. So if I wanted to add this into a report, the add to case icon is the best way to do it. What it does is it takes the initial premium listed here on an annual or monthly basis, along with the guaranteed renewal schedule of that plan, and it adds it into the design case page. So there we go. There's the existing T10 that we already have, along with that new Empire Life Solution 10 that we searched and added into the insurance case. So now that's telling me these plans are available in my report. Remember, you could show any amount of plans, any carriers, any product types. It really is up to you, but there's no limitation from Propel as far as what you can do. One thing to note though, if anybody has a question, feel free to put it into like the chat section inside of here. We can address that later on, or maybe because we're a bit more of a smaller audience, we can open up the microphones. I'm flexible to either or, but we'll reserve questions in the last couple minutes. So term, pretty consistent. You're usually searching the rates just like this in order to add them in. Permanent can be a little bit different. And because of that, when you select the Universal Life button or the Whole Life button, a menu like this will come up where search rates comes up at the top, so allowing you to do a market survey. But there's also a list of carriers down below, major carriers specifically. So the search rates option that you see here, that allows me to run the market survey inside of Propel, just like we did for the term insurance. Now you'll see all the options are identical. The only thing that's slightly different is the term lengths because we're looking at a permanent insurance type as opposed to a temporary one. But you'll notice here the consistency from searching for one plan to the next. The look and feel is the same. The way we add this information in is the same. So maybe in this case, I'll add in the Avari Universal Life Plan instead of the Vitality through Manulife. But you can see here the results give you the same look and feel, adding it in, and the end result is the same look and feel as well. So because of that reason, that's where a lot of the repetition comes into play from one case to the next, which helps eliminate the drastic learning curve that maybe you see with other applications because you typically are following the same path from start to finish. So that's how you can add in a permanent plan in one way through the search rates, but that's specifically for basic permanent options. So there I added in a level cost minimum funded UL. But if I wanted to add in a overfunded UL or a par whole life, that's where we would want to then choose the button of the plan type and then identify the carrier through the drop down menu below. Now, why we do this is because the market surveys, they don't show dividend growth, they don't show ADO, offsets, riders. It's really just what's our premium that's guaranteed, what's our guaranteed cash value, and then what's our guaranteed death benefit. So if we're working with plans that have more than those values, Par Whole Life's an easy example of that. That's where we choose the carrier, like I've done here, and then it provides the input option to bring in data from that carrier and specifically their illustration software. Now, as I go through this example, I will mention I am not a licensed advisor, so carriers do not provide me with web-based logins like they do for you. So I will be demonstrating how to load this in through an older desktop version of an Illustrator, but you can absolutely use the web-based version because you have access to those programs. But that's what Propel is asking me to do here, to gather spreadsheet data from the carrier's Illustrator. So that's what I'll do here. I'll just go into an Illustrator and here I have a Canada Life example. So let's modify this quickly. So my client is a 40-year-old female. I already got that set. I'll make this a 20 pay to differentiate it from that Avari plan we've already brought in. I'll say that it's paid up additions and I'll set the insurance amount at $500,000. I'll paid for on an annual basis to match those other plans. But in order to equal the insurance, and again, you don't have to equal the insurance, it doesn't have to be apples to apples, but just for this sake, I'll include a term 20 rider and I'll say that rider is for an additional $500,000 and that will be going till age 60, which is 20 years. All right. Now, you can design these however you want, so please keep that in mind. But when you design it, you're not going to the report or the illustration option that the illustrators provide. We want this information in a spreadsheet format so we could take all the numbers and values and translate them into the format that Propel provides in our output. So in order to get that, you'll need to select either a data or a spreadsheet option depending on the illustrator. Canada Life, Empire Life, they call it data. Manulife, Sun Life, Equitable Life, they call it spreadsheet. So you'll see some differences from one to the other. But when you click the data or spreadsheet option, usually it provides the Excel output within their Illustrator, but to load it into Propel, we need to export it into Excel. And all of them provide that option where you can download a spreadsheet file. So once you have that spreadsheet file loaded in your computer, you can either save it if it hasn't been saved already and load that into Propel. If it hasn't saved it already and you see it open, just like my version here, you even have the ability to highlight all the data points and copy it, just like I've done here, and then paste it inside of Propel. So if it's downloaded automatically, go to the import option and you can click here to see your file explorer and load in that file. What I did is I copied the information, so I've selected the paste button here to bring up this text box where I can paste the data, select the upload button, and then we'll see that loaded in just a matter of seconds. So this will refresh. I see that import button up at the top. I no longer see the import and paste options below. That's telling me that I've successfully loaded in this data. If I want further validation, just click on the name or this little drop down arrow to the left of the name of the plan, and you could see a preview some of the values that came in from that spreadsheet. So if you were looking to add in more than one permanent example like this, really what you do is you just click on the permanent product type you'd like to bring in, select the carrier you wish to use as well, and follow those same steps from start to finish to design the plan and bring it in through their Illustrator. One thing we recommend always doing is changing the name based on the product type that you design. So here I can have mentioned that there's a term 20 rider, that it's a 20 pay plan, but the edit option is where you do it, just like I did earlier on for that existing term plan. Another thing to note when I scroll down, this is where a lot of customization options come into play. I'll just highlight them very quickly. Case controls, this subsection is for the settings of the report. I'll highlight one option you should really focus on as you're getting started in a second. Notes, that's where you can add in any of your own notes or any custom page options like a reason why letter. So that's where you can bring in these documents and fill in the blanks. The alternate investment assumptions, that's where I can design the investment vehicle, just like I did earlier on with that example presentation I showed. That's where I created the investment. And for those of us that are in the market of showing IFAs, you could even design that inside of Propel. All you need is that carrier spreadsheet illustration to be loaded in. You don't require an IFA illustration from the carrier to design it in Propel. And the very last section here is where you can see all the different page options. There's a default selection that's already done out of the box based on your account settings. But if you're new to Propel, instead of going through this list of pages and trying to figure out what you like and don't like, my recommendation is to scroll up to the case controls area and go to this option here, report concepts. What this offers is a pre-selected list of options, and these options select the best pages based on the report type you'd like to use. Excuse me one second. All right. So this option here, term conversion, term versus permanent. What it's done when I've selected it is it's chosen the best page options for that report type. So it does that thinking and that work for us. So I'll generate the report. All right. So I've generated the report, puts it all together for me. You'll see the look and feel is consistent to the last report that we saw earlier on, just with all those new plans that we've presented or that we've searched for. And it all comes through in that same look and feel, just like that other case that we saw. There's our cash values, our reduced dividend, the guarantees. There's that rider. So yeah, that's all it takes. And again, remember, if I wanted to share this with the client, all we do is go to either the generate option for a PDF file or the share. That's what we recommend to share the report with in that web link format. And then they can view it on their own device and you receive that alert from Propel telling you that it's been completed. Now, one thing to note is if you require support, that's really my main role within Life Design Analysis and Propel is to provide support for any of our subscribers. We have a lot of options built in with Propel. So first, we offer this training video option right from the homepage, which takes you to a dedicated YouTube playlist where we have lots of different videos teaching you more about Propel and how it can be used. We even have some webinars that we've recorded in the past that you can utilize or take advantage of to view. At the very top, there is a help option. This takes you to our knowledge base where we offer help guides. And we have a specific section here on the left-hand side for Propel. And inside of here, you'll see some startup guides. If you do subscribe, these startup guides will be sent to you via email, but we also have them available here for you to utilize. And then finally, in Propel, on every single page, you may have noticed this Ask Us a Question tab. This is the live chat that's built into Propel, where you can communicate with myself and my team that I help manage, and we could support you right inside the application. So if you need help, this is the best way to get help inside of Propel. Now, one thing we haven't talked about yet, and I know we're getting close on time and I want to reserve some time for questions as well. There is also a online lead system that is included within Propel and the subscription. So what that can do is you can embed essentially a section of Propel on your website or on a landing page. So visitors of that landing page can create a Propel report themselves. All they need to do is input their general information and they need to specify why they're purchasing insurance. And then once they've specified that, we then ask them how much insurance they need, where they can either put in a specific amount or they can, if they don't know, fill in a client-friendly needs analysis. And then what it will do is it will provide an output of a Propel presentation with your name, your branding, all that sort of stuff. You receive an alert right away once that has happened. So you can then act on that opportunity and that lead. But the plans that are used are generally based on what need they've selected. So if they select buying a house, we'll show them a 10-year term, a 20-year term versus a 30-year term. We also have having a child, we have a retirement options, supplemental income, estate needs, you name it. The only thing is if you're looking at like permanent plans such as a par whole life or an overfunded you well, those online generated reports will not show that, but it can at least start the conversation. So that's something you can definitely take advantage of with Propel, and it's included with Propel, especially if you have a web presence or are looking to build that even further. Uh, One thing I always like to do is kind of a funny little joke at the end is show this graphic because yes, Propel is a new system. Yes, it will take a little bit of time to onboard it and get it set up. But really, one of the main value points, along with how it could support your clients, is the time savings that you would see by using a system like this. And hopefully today you've seen how we can do that with the presentations, the quotes that are built in, the outputs that are very easy to design in minutes. But even from a policy management perspective, just having all that information in one source and being able to utilize that information or receive alerts from it, it is definitely a big, big time saver, despite it having a little bit of a setup timeline to get you comfortable and familiar with the system. But as you saw, there's a lot of different ways that we can help get you started within Propel. So if you are interested in getting started again, here's this QR code again. So scan that, it will take you right to the form that Hub provides where you can request a subscription. The subscription fee for Propel is a 1 year contract or commitment. It's $99 per month. That's how the payments work. So although it is a an annual commitment, it is paid for on a monthly basis and it is $99 a month. For those of you that know life design analysis or have had it in the past and compare the cost, there's about a $40 per month savings that are offered there compared to our regular cost. So there's a lot of value that you get. Plus, it is a better system than life design analysis, especially because of the data feeds, but also because of the added security that it is a hub only system of life design analysis and it's only hub data that's inside there. So that's was my agenda today, but I'll leave my contact information up here. Corey, I see you're coming back on. Maybe we can reserve this time for any questions and go through that together as a group.
Yeah, and I have a couple questions. Then we
Please.
might be able to wrap up a minute or two early, but it didn't look like seg funds were included. Is that something that's not going to be part of Propel, or is that or are seg funds part of the system?
It's not out of the box with the data feeds. Could it be? Yes, there may be some limitations from carrier to carrier, but the data feeds right now are Life, CI, and DI. Those are the plans that we'll see come in automatically. I will say there are ways in which you can enter that in or add in the seg fund details if you'd like, but it's not being sent at this moment.
Yeah, the wealth part of the business is very different. So it looked like this was very much geared towards the insurance side, but I did just want to ask.
Mhm.
But yeah, for an advisor, you could still kind of load in the data and still use this kind of as your CRM if you wanted to. And for teams, we have a lot of advisors that have administrative assistants, some licensed, some not, as well as a lot of teams that kind of work together where they might have shared clients. How um, how is this kind of the Propel set up for managing a team? And can you kind of share clients? Can you share whole profiles? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so everybody that needs access to Propel needs their own login point because it's connected to Hub links. So essentially, it's one login per individual. If you speak with Hub, I believe they're doing something for the admin or the associates who need access and helping.
Mhm.
But we have a feature inside of Propel called groups. So everybody that has an account can have a connection with an associate advisor, an administrator, a team. It really is up to you. So how we have it set up is let's say just for simplicity's sake, there's one licensed advisor, there's one associate that supports that licensed advisor. There's a connection with their account where they automatically see all the clients. Any new clients get automatically shared with that associate through the group's functionality. They can see cases, they can see alerts and notifications, notes, all that kind of stuff. So it's
Yeah.
basically replicating the data from one account to the next. And usually, a lot of those associate or admins, especially if they're licensed, they're creating reports. So they can create it in their account, and the advisor can present it on their account with their contact information, their names. So that's very much how it works, but we can really customize that further for segmented blocks of businesses. It just depends on what you need to determine like the time in order to set it up. But
Okay.
yeah.
If you had some that were some shared clients, like let's say you had two licensed partners and like just a simple example, one has 20 clients and 10 of them are shared. Um, can you have like half of their block kind of share with another advisor so they could both see it, or would it all have to be under one profile?
So the information gets loaded in to the agent of record. So whoever the agent of record is, they will see that information loaded into their account. And from
Yeah.
there, you can share everything. You can share segments of it. It really is up to you. And you can determine who you want to share that with within each group. So that's something you can either establish that, and when we're getting into that arrangement, it's generally something that you would have to do or determine, okay, who do I want this person to see? Which ones of these clients? But it's all just done from the client section. All
All
we
right.
do is just there's an option here where we can check off the clients that we want to share, and then we tell the system we'd like to share these clients with a group. And usually that group is associated to the name of somebody, and then it will get shared into whoever has access to that group. So usually it's one advisor that we typically see or one admin.
All right. Well, that sounds very flexible for a lot of our teams, and they can kind of work with this software how it would make sense for them. I don't see any other questions, but I just wanted to say thank you for joining us, John, and that was a really great presentation. You went through quite a bit. I would encourage anybody interested in this software to reach out to John or to Jordan. Um, I think it can, there's a lot it can do for your business. I think the visuals are very powerful. As you kind of illustrated, the clients sometimes like spreadsheets. Like there are some clients that are really numbers focused, but a lot would rather have the visuals and be able to understand it a little better if they have those presentations. And this was a really professional way of delivering a presentation to your clients. I would recommend presenting these proposals to the client, not sending them. I know there's that ability, but it will help you with the process if you actually sit down with the client or do a
100%.
Zoom meeting and walk through it, um, and highlight sort of the impactful items. And I think that can help close, especially if you're going after a large case. You don't want to lose it just because you didn't take that extra 10 minutes or 20 minutes to explain it. And the client management system, I mean, I've had so many advisors ask me for something like that over the years, and it's uh, it's something where a lot of advisors, they're especially the ones that use a lot of carriers, like they have data over here, they have data over there. That finally we have a way to consolidate it, and I think that it's great that you guys have built that. I really appreciate it. I know there's going to be a lot of advisors interested in that portion of it, how you can share it and work with a team. That's really good too. Definitely something that I think can help advisors save time on their client management. And that just gives you more time to prospect. It gives you more time to work with your clients. You can mine more of the data. A lot of advantages in this software. So I think for many advisors, it will be worth the cost for sure. And yes, it will take you a little while to wrap your head around the new software or your team. But I think in many cases, it's going to be well worth it. It'll help with efficiency, help you close a few more deals. And if you can save a few hours on client management and put that time towards prospecting, um, it's going to pay off in the short term, medium, and long term.
Mhm.
So yeah, with that, I'll wrap it up. I'll be sending this video around, and thank you very much, John, for joining us. Really appreciate the presentation.
No, my pleasure, Corey. Thanks, everyone.